the comments of General Dannett. These people, as Justice Keegan said yesterday, she exposed the lies of the British state. And we heard plans from Westminster to block justice for the likes of Ballymurphy families. I mean, what a slap in the face. What a slap in the face for those families. And still, Boris Johnson can't even bring himself to give a public apology. So no proper apology, no justice, no reconciliation to speak of, despite Boris Johnson repeating it over and over again. And what he wants, everybody has a right to justice, but what Boris Johnson wants to do is to keep the British state out of courts. And we're not just talking about soldiers who fired the bullets. This is about protecting the top brass who gave the orders to the likes of Ballymurphy for Bloody Sunday, and that's ultimately who Boris Johnson wants to protect. But everybody has a right to truth and justice.
Well, if everybody has a right to truth and justice, how are we going to get that out of the IRA and the UVF? There's no chance, is there? There's no chance.
Well, everybody has a right to pursue truth and justice, but there's a contradiction here because Lord Dannett has said that the army kept records of who was where on August 1971 and other occasions. But also Justice Keegan stated in the inquest that there was a problem with information forthcoming. So there's an obvious gap there, and the reason to me is what it suggests is that there's a cover-up. And I think those families, the families of John Taggart, of Eileen, and of all the Bloody Sunday, the Ballymurphy and Bloody Sunday families deserve the right to truth and justice. And indeed, there has been prosecutions, some prosecutions for Republicans and loyalists, and collectively resulting in tens of thousands of years behind bars. But let's remember, there hasn't been a single soldier or general or army commander spent a single night in a jail cell for what was done, first of all, in Ballymurphy, and then several months later in Bloody Sunday in Derry.
Lord Dannett, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I think your other speaker makes a very fair point. I don't think the investigations in Bloody Sunday in 1972 or in Ballymurphy in 1971 were conducted at all. It should not be 50 years on that we're actually conducting these discussions. I think it's a failure of the state at the time not to have investigated. But I come back to the point that I was making before, is don't condemn the whole British Army for what it was trying to do. You have to look at individual actions, individual activities, events that happened on certain days in certain places, conducted by certain units, and those questions were the ones that needed to be answered. Most British soldiers got up for 38 years in the morning to carry out their duties faithfully and according
Fuck
to
off.
the law. On occasions it went wrong, and on those occasions, investigations many years ago should have been followed through much more rigorously, much more thoroughly, try and get to the truth.
Are you aware
it's much more difficult to do it 50 years later.
Are you aware of anybody in the British Army who saw what happened?
Am I aware of anyone who saw what happened?
Yeah.
No, of course I wasn't. I was in Ardoyne in a different part of Belfast at the time. As a very junior officer.
No. I'm not asking you. Did you see it firsthand? I'm just saying that over all of these 50 years, are you aware of anybody in the British Army who stood up tall, didn't have some type of memory lapse, and said, "I saw what happened. This was wrong"?
That's an impossible question to answer. I know an awful lot of people in the British Army who've been involved in an awful lot of operations over the years. I can't possibly answer your question about.
Of course you can. It was just a question.
Something about Ballymurphy or about Bloody Sunday. I can't possibly.
I didn't ask you that either.
An impossible question to answer.
Why is it impossible? You're the former head of the British Army. You either remember or you don't. It's not impossible.
Exactly.
Question.
You remember, you don't.
No British soldier saw what happened. Nobody remembers it. Nobody saw it.
You don't remember? Come on.
Is it?
Well, Stephen, you're having a wonderfully interrogative program. When I was head of the British Army, we were locked in operations in Iraq and Afghanistan. So my thinking was in a completely different area to what might have happened in Northern Ireland then 40 years
You're in fucking Northern Ireland, so don't lie.
And I didn't have to come on your programme this evening, and I have perfectly reasonably expressed my condolences to the families, and that's a genuine expression.
I totally accept that, sir. I really do. I genuinely do, and I'm grateful
Thank
for
you.
you. And I'm grateful for you
Thank
coming
you.
on. I guess what I'm just trying to convey is how gut wrenching, frustrating it must be for these families to have had to wait so long, and then be told that, you know, this army of integrity, so-called integrity, saw nothing, heard nothing.
And I totally understand that. I think the only point that I'm trying to make is don't damn the whole British Army, which has a very fine tradition of doing difficult things in dangerous places, for the deeds of a relatively small number who undoubtedly got things wrong on occasions, on certain days, and have not had the moral courage to stand up and tell the truth.
John,
And that actually has
small
led
number.
to the difficulties